All right. Welcome to the 6th Annual UCSD Women's Conference. Yeah, go ahead. I'm Jill Leutgeb. I'm the co-chair of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee on the Status of Women and a professor of neurobiology, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today. The UC San Diego's Women's Conference has been a brainchild of the Chancellor's Advisory Committee on the Status of Women, or CSW as we're known, and we were formed in 1987 by the Chancellor's Office, and today it comprises representatives appointed by the Chancellor from members of faculty and staff and students at UCSD. And our charge is to identify and analyze issues relating to the status of women on campus, to inform and educate the campus community about conditions that affect the status of women, and also to advise the Chancellor regarding policies and procedures that will improve conditions of women on the UCSD campus. And so the outcome of working towards these goals has been the establishment of this annual Women's Conference. So each year, the conference brings together business professionals, healthcare providers, scientists, award-winning faculty that share ideas about motivating today's women, offering tips on empowering oneself, budgeting, financing, and staying fit, healthy, and well-balanced. So in this tradition, we have a great conference planned for you today. We have speakers from all over the campus and San Diego community, distinguished faculty members, staff leaders, and tremendous women who truly embody our theme, the theme of be the change you want to see. So Gandhi has inspired us this year, and the women and men speaking today are doing just that. They're making a change. And we're honored to have them share their insights and their stories with us throughout the day. So among the speakers today is our YWCA Tribute to Women and Industry Award recipient, Dr. Anita Raj, whom we'd like to take a quick moment to congratulate today for her receiving this award and for her great achievements. So she will be speaking in one of our breakout sessions today. And this year, the conference planning committee would also like to take a few moments at this special event to honor another extraordinary woman. And so this picture is of Dr. Doris Howell, a hematologist, oncologist, and internationally renowned leader in pediatrics, women's health, and hospice care. And she's sitting on the front row here. Dr. Howell earned her MD at McGill University's medical school. She served as a faculty member at Harvard University and Duke University Schools of Medicine, and was the first woman to chair a pediatrics department at a medical school in the United States. She was also the first female chair of the UCSD School of Medicine's Department of Community and Family Medicine, and the founder of the San Diego Hospice and Institute of Palliative Medicine. She joined the UC San Diego faculty 40 years ago in 1974, and celebrated her 90th birthday this past December. And the celebration of your 90th birthday is what the city of San Diego designated as Doris Howell Day, in recognition and appreciation of her or your life accomplishments. So in 1995, the Soar Optimists honored Dr. Howell by establishing a foundation in her name. So this foundation is named the Doris A. Howell Foundation for Women's Health and Research. The Howell Foundation, in which Dr. Howell remains active, awards undergraduate research scholarships annually as part of its activities. So this is a clear example of how she never stops giving. We are honored that she's here with us today, that we can honor her. We're grateful for all that she has done, all that she's exemplified for women and continues to do, and we thank her and pay tribute to her and wish her a belated happy 90th birthday. Dr. Howell wanted to say a few words.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor, for those nice words. And for everyone, I feel honored and humbled at the same time to be your first guest woman at these programs. I've watched the program grow from the beginning, and I'm very proud of where it is now. You've done a wonderful job. This is an interesting moment for me. I've been trying to keep my birthday quiet, but the wheels and everything tell you I'm getting on. But there's still lots of work to do, so I'll stay around. Thank you.
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to have her with us today. And now I'm happy to invite UCSD's Interim Vice Chancellor of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, esteemed Professor of Communications, Dr. Carol Padden, to begin our conference and start it off with her opening remarks.
Hello, everyone. I want to welcome all of you to UC San Diego's Women's Conference. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers this morning, and then through the day, there'll be activities, seminars, and workshops. And the theme, as you know, is Be the Change You Want to See. I want first to add my congratulations to Anita Raj and Doris Howell. Thank you very much for all that you've done. So what kind of change do we want to see? What kind of change should we be trying to be? Well, I have a list of things that I would like to see. So with the 10 minutes I have, I want to go through the list quickly. We want to see more women faculty across all divisions on campus. We want to see more women of color faculty across all divisions on campus. Women are now increasingly represented among PhD recipients across disciplines, yet their presence in the faculty rank is slow to increase. What we need to recognize is what it takes to change that profile on this campus. We have to change how we recruit and hire our faculty. We have to change how we support our faculty while they're here, including retaining them. These are changes not only in practices, but in how we behave around women colleagues and the women we invite to campus. In a recent climate survey of staff here at UC San Diego, women staff say they want more opportunities for training and advancement. They want more support for their family lives, including flexibility for childcare and elder care. They want to be treated with respect by their colleagues and supervisors. These are changes we can institute with policies, and we can point out unacceptable bullying behavior around us. More women are attending colleges and universities than ever before. They're increasingly represented through the undergraduate and graduate student population, but few of them make it through graduate school, receive PhDs, and get faculty jobs. We have pipeline projects that support women as they work their way through graduate school. But when they get to the other end of the pipeline, is it a place they even want to be? We can train, we can provide opportunities, but how do we address the harder side of all of this, making this campus an engine of opportunity for women and women of color? Be the change you want to see. I invite you to find a way to contribute to our collective goals on campus. Thanks to the Committee on the Status of Women, we're working on child care availability and family leave accommodation policies. I'll be meeting along with the Chancellor with members of the CSW to begin working on these two policy issues. CREATE is working to bring more young women educational opportunities here at UC San Diego and elsewhere. They're reaching out to our local high schools, elementary schools, middle schools to get women ready for college and universities. The Women's Center, Director Marnie Buccalow, they've opened their doors to women on this campus, as have all of our other student centers, the Cross-Cultural Center, the LGBT Center, and our three newest centers, the Black Resource Center, the Rosa Resource Center, and the Student Veterans Center. Whether you're faculty, staff, or students, all of our centers, our places, our committees, there's a place for you. There's something that we can have you do. We have opportunities on campus. Now we need to make them count. We have to create the kind of campus where women have a place and a say in everything we do. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor and Padden. It's wonderful to have such momentum and such energy behind many of the issues that concern us as women on campus. And we'd like to start to welcome our keynote speakers today. And here they are for you, Lauray, MacElhern, and Dr. Gordon Saxe. So along the theme of staying fit, healthy, well-balanced, and educated, we look forward to hearing their comments today. Lauray MacElhern is the Managing Director of the UCSD Center for Integrative Medicine and the co-founder, teacher, and trainer of the UCSD Natural Healing and Cooking Program. Prior to coming to UCSD, she ran a Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit organization, the Cancer Project, dedicated to nutrition education and research for cancer prevention and survival. She has trained hundreds of chefs around the world on nutrition courses. Her organization, under her leadership, has reached millions through its public outreach efforts and within community centers, hospitals, medical centers, and more than 160 cities around the world. Dr. Gordon Saxe is the Director of Research, a preventative and integrative medicine physician, and founding member of the UCSD Center for Integrative Medicine and co-developer of the UCSD Natural Healing and Cooking Program. He is a recipient of a prestigious NIH Career Development Award from the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. Dr. Saxe is a national expert in cancer and complementary and alternative medicine. Prior to coming to UCSD, Dr. Saxe was the medical director for the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. So these are two very accomplished individuals that we are so excited to welcome today. Please join me in welcoming Lauray MacElhern and Dr. Gordon Saxe as our keynote speaker for today's event.
Well, thank you all so much for having us here. We were so pleased when we heard about the theme of this year's conference being the change you wish to see in the world. And I think for both me and for Gordon, and really for all of you, if you're here today, so much of that is about our health and well-being. If we're not feeling well and we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we hope to be the change? How can we help anyone? How can we do anything? It almost reminds me of when we're in the airplane and there's an emergency and they say, make sure that you put your own mask before you help anyone else. And so that's one of the inspiring messages that we hope to share with you today, and it's one of the things that we teach through the Center for Integrative Medicine in our Natural Healing and Cooking program. And it really comes down to, as I was thinking about this more, women being such a core ingredient in this formula for health and well-being of our community. And that's because, like it or not, health statistics tell us that women are still doing the majority of cooking, shopping, preparing food, making health decisions for their families. And so that puts us right at the center of our families and our health, the health of our communities. So this got me really excited. Wow, we actually have this opportunity to talk with and be with some incredible women here at UCSD today. And I just cannot imagine a greater honor than being able to unite with all of you on this mission. So I wanted to ask, who's heard of the Center for Integrative Medicine before today? Okay, wow, good. I'm glad to see that. It's a 3-year-old organization, so we still feel like we're new, but really trying to make a difference at UC San Diego and beyond. For those of you who didn't raise your hand and are just getting to know the center, I'll say a couple of quick words about it. First of all, I think at the biggest level, we're really trying to positively transform the practice of medicine and of healthcare. And again, that starts with what's going on within each and every one of us. So we have a team of integrative medicine physicians, osteopathic physicians, acupuncturists, clinical psychologists who are also integrative medicine psychologists, and massage therapists, among other instructors who are teaching group classes all about how to harness this power of health and take an active participation in your own healthcare versus a passive sort of role, which has been the kind of traditional health model, more of actually a sick model instead of a health model, actually. So that's what we're trying to turn on its head, to turn upside down with the Center for Integrative Medicine. And I think for both Gordon and I, we have come to this incredible mission in very unique and different ways. So I'm very pleased to have Dr. Saxe share his story about how he came into this mission.
Okay. Thanks, Lauray.
Oh, I realized I have one more slide in there before we go to yours. And this was just, I realized my analogy as I was putting away this poor little plant that had started to wilt. And I was thinking, wow, this is actually a really good analogy for integrative medicine and preventive medicine, because those plants that actually get that water every day, you really don't notice every day that they're growing, but they are, and they're flourishing. And then if there's one that you forgot about in the corner and didn't get any water, and all of a sudden it's brown and wilted, it takes all these heroics to try to save this poor plant. I mean, this weekend I'm clipping it, I'm trying to care for it, and it took hours just to try to go through every little leaf and wipe it down. And I thought, I need to put that slide in the presentation, because there is something so analogous to taking care of ourselves day in and day out, those little changes that make such a difference in the long run. So that was what that slide was about that I almost forgot. So without further ado, Gordon, please take it away.
Thank you. So I have to tell you that initially when I was asked to speak before you today, I felt like a little bit of an imposter. I mean, here I am, a man daring to lecture to a group of some of the most powerful professional women in our community about what they should do to further empower themselves in their careers and whatnot. And I started to reflect on it a little bit, and I thought, well, I'm not really an imposter after all. First of all, I come from a family of strong women. I have a mother and I have 2 sisters, and sometimes they look to me for guidance and for support. My mom is still going strong at age 85, and just a few years ago, she retired after a career of over 50 years as a psychotherapist. And as a child growing up in the age of Leave It to Beaver, my mom was the exact opposite of June Cleaver. She was a working, career-oriented woman. And this is at a time when most of my friends' moms were, in the more traditional role at that time of housewives. And I usually came home to an empty house because mom was working, my dad was working, and but I also want to say that my mom was a very influential role model for both my sisters and for me. And she showed us that it was really possible, and not only possible, but desirable, to have a career that you love. And she also taught us how rewarding it can be to serve other people. So, not surprisingly, both of my sisters have become very gifted psychotherapists, and I also went into a helping profession. As a child, my family life revolved around the kitchen. So both of my parents, my mom and my dad, enjoyed cooking. And we also loved to talk. So we would talk endlessly into the night as something was roasting in the oven. My dad modeled that it was fine for me as a guy to be in the kitchen and to love to cook. When I was 9 years old, I took my first cooking class in Chinese cookery. I was fascinated. The first time I tried using cornstarch, and I poured it into a stir fry, and voila, it transformed, it thickened up. I was enthralled. At age 14, I was baking bagels, my first real job. I have a love-hate relationship with bagels, I have to tell you. And I cooked dinner. I was the one who cooked dinner sometimes on nights when both of my parents were working late. So it's only natural that once I discovered the importance of diet for health, the kitchen would become my laboratory, and I'd want to talk with my patients about how to use food as medicine. And both of my parents, and also my larger extended family, infused in me the spirit of something referred to as tikkun olam. And that's a Jewish concept that says that we should dedicate our lives to making the world a better place. So those are some of the ingredients of where I'm coming from and why I don't really feel like an imposter talking to you today. So I want to switch gears a little bit and tell you a little bit about my dad, because what happened to him was really important in how I got here as well. When I was just out of college, my dad was diagnosed with an advanced urologic malignancy. So the cancer had already spread. And my dad's doctor, who was the chair of urology at Johns Hopkins Hospital, told us that my dad's survival was measured in months, not in years. My God, my dear dad was going to die in less than a year. That was, I couldn't wrap my mind around that. So I started digging, to help myself, to empower myself. I went down to the Johns Hopkins Medical Library. I think my dad was up on the 10th floor, and I went like about 3 or 4 stories underground into this huge medical library, and I read everything that I could, anything I could find on cancer, on my dad's specific type of cancer, conventional treatment options, alternative medicine options, anything. This is before the age of personal computers, so I'm dating myself here a little bit. They had microfilm machines, and one of the librarians at Hopkins Medical Library helped me with this. And so here I am, cranking on the microfilm machine, crank, 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 fup, 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 fup. You know, image comes into place, crank some more, and fup, fup, fup. And there it was, this story that was in the Baltimore Sun, a reprint of a story that had already appeared in the Saturday Evening Post. And it was the story of Dr. Anthony Sadolaro. Dr. Sadolaro was a physician and the president of Methodist Hospital in Philadelphia. And he was dying from advanced prostate cancer. It had already spread throughout his bones, to a number of his ribs, his sternum, and also to his brain. He had lost a great deal of weight. He was in constant pain, round-the-clock narcotics, and he was within a few months of his death, or so it seemed. And then, by chance, he stumbled across a whole food, plant-based diet and changes in his lifestyle that he engaged in that absolutely transformed him. And so Dr. Sadolaro started taking meals with a group of people in Philadelphia who cooked this way, who ate this way, a supportive community. It was partly the food, it was partly the environment that he was in. Everybody around the dinner table was convinced he was going to get better. He was the only one who wasn't sure. After a few weeks of eating this way, he noticed that his pain had disappeared. And after several months, he was gaining weight, his appearance had improved, and he realized something very strange was going on. So about 8 months after he should have already died, he went back and he had a repeat bone scan and CT scan. And it showed that the cancer had completely disappeared. So I'm reading this story. You could just imagine, here I am in the bowels of the Johns Hopkins Medical Library reading this story that I can't quite believe is true. And my dad is up on one of the higher floors there recovering from cancer surgery, and we've been told by the world's expert that he doesn't have very long to live. So I jumped into this. I learned everything I could about it. I met other people who had similar stories to tell, but they weren't the presidents of hospitals, they weren't physicians, so their stories didn't get into the press the way Dr. Sattlellaro's did. But some of them I was able to medically validate, others not. But nonetheless, they pointed out that diet and lifestyle potentially could make a big difference for people. And so this isn't to say that every individual who has cancer is going to be able to use diet and lifestyle to treat that cancer. Not at all. It's probably much more of a rare thing than that. But it could be very important for helping to prevent it and other diseases as well. And on occasion, it might help somebody and at least could be tried as a way to help prevent a relapse after the cancer has been treated. So I went back to Baltimore and shared this with my dad, and he and my mom started to make some changes. Not complete, but halfway in their diet and in their lifestyle. My mom was a big believer in the power of the mind. She was a psychotherapist, so naturally that part really appealed to her and made sense. And they both loved to cook, so that helped too. And they made some changes. And time went by, and my dad remarkably stuck around. And after about 4 years from the time that he was diagnosed, we found out that the cancer, well, he was still alive at that point, but we found out that the cancer had recurred. And so at this point, the treatment options were really lousy. My dad was told that he could essentially have all of his urologic plumbing redone, and it would be a very, very serious operation and without great odds at the end of the day. And so very reluctantly, he decided not to do that and instead to really get disciplined with his diet in a way that he hadn't been before. And for the next couple of months, he really jumped into it. And at the end of that time, he went back to the doctors, and they could not find any evidence of the relapse of the cancer. His cancer had also disappeared. It wasn't widespread the way Dr. Sattlellaro's was, but the location that they saw, initially, it had disappeared. And my dad, of course, interpreted that as a cure, not a remission. Didn't quite recognize that he still harbored the susceptibility for the cancer to come back if he went off of his healthier diet. But nonetheless, to celebrate, he and my mom went out and had corned beef sandwiches, and they're calling me, I was at University of Michigan at the time in grad school, they're telling me, great news, Gordon, we had this wonderful result, and then my mom sort of chimes in, and Gordon, you're gonna hate me for telling you this, but we couldn't resist. We went down to Lombard Street, and in Baltimore, that's synonymous with corned beef sandwiches that are about 2 or 3 inches high. So anyway, my dad nonetheless did maintain some of the healthy changes, and he lived for about 10 years from the time that he was diagnosed, far longer than anybody expected, and most of it was good quality time and really deeply important for both him and for me, because it gave us a chance to bond in a way that we hadn't before. So anyway, again, cases like my dad's and Dr. Sattlellaro's and others don't prove that diet is the cause of the remission that they experienced, but they certainly do raise an intriguing question. These are what would be referred to scientifically as outliers, and there's a lot that we need to learn and study about them. We need to take them seriously. So my career was focused really for many years on learning how to do research, studying nutrition, studying medicine, doing things that I could do to learn, to study this phenomenon. How does diet impact these diseases like cancer? Can it be used not just for prevention? Could it even be a valid form of treatment? I didn't know. And what I've learned is that the answer is that in most cases, it can be an important, if not the central, preventive factor for heart disease, for diabetes, for obesity. I mean, it sort of makes sense. But even many cancers. And sometimes it can even help to stabilize, and we already know in the case of heart disease and diabetes, can actually help to reverse some of these conditions. So a few years ago, we launched the Center for Integrative Medicine at UCSD. And an important element of our program was to make as a central component the use of diet and lifestyle change to help patients to actively participate in their own healing and wellness, and to make this the foundation for all the other treatments that we do. And I feel that we can actually take the wind out of the sails of so many conditions by focusing on these elements. So another thing that we do at the Center for Integrative Medicine is we focus not just on individuals, like one-on-one sessions with a patient, but we work with them in groups. And we have a lot of group-based classes. And the reason for this is because, first and foremost, there is a healing dynamic that occurs in groups that you can't just achieve in the office. People help one another. It draws the healer out of each person because then they have an obligation to help other people, and that adds to their own healing process. And of course, it's also important to note in an age when spiraling healthcare costs are just threatening to bankrupt the economy, that when we work with patients in groups, it's far more cost effective. One doctor or a nutritionist could work with a whole group of patients rather than one at a time. So when we realized that we needed to make group classes in diet and lifestyle change a central core of what we did, well, I thought, I had gotten to know Lauray MacElhern over the years. The Cancer Project that she was the director of had supported a research project that I was doing on diet and prostate cancer. And so I reached out to Lauray, and I told her about what we were doing. And we had actually talked about concepts of developing programs like this for a while, but now it was real. We actually had a center that we were going to be launching. And so I thought, why mess around? When you need a professional, you go to the pros. And she is the pro. Lauray, as I think somebody mentioned, in running the Cancer Project, was able to grow this incredible dynamic program, an award-winning program that was taught in over 160 cities, 8 countries around the world, has had over 100,000 program graduates. They've done massive amounts of research on what they're doing, and I thought, this is the kind of thing that we need as a model, something that is scalable and we can grow as the demand for this increases. And one other thing about Lauray is that not only is she an expert in diet and nutrition, but also she's an expert in the development of scalable media and communication technologies. And she really demonstrated that with the Cancer Project. So Lauray wowed everybody and got hired to become the managing director for the UCSD Center for Integrative Medicine, and together she and I launched the Natural Healing and Cooking program to teach food as medicine to our patients. And over the past 2 years, since we started the program, we've delivered over 80 classes, we've had a dozen or more group cohorts, and we've graduated several hundred participants, and we've already witnessed dramatic health improvements in a number of them, in patients with heart disease, diabetes, obesity, prostate cancer, inflammatory bowel disease, and many others. But instead of me telling you about Lauray, I actually think maybe she should tell you a little bit about herself because she has a quite interesting story.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Well, I was trying to come up with a good slide that would sort of sum up my childhood, which was very influential. That was kind of the best one I could find. That was pretty much me and what sums up my eating behavior as little. Yes, I was messy, but more importantly, I was actually really, like a good American, kind of blame my family for everything. So my parents were very into health and well-being, and I didn't realize that at the time because I was definitely the weird kid in school. People peering into my lunchbox of strange things like seaweed and tofu and very, very unusual things, even for someone who was in Northern California at the time. So my parents were way ahead of their time studying things like Chinese medicine and Japanese medicine, and hence why I had that kind of Asian influence in my lunchbox. And I knew, even though I was sort of made fun of and definitely shy and sort of embarrassed about what I was eating, I had evidence, even then, that it was the right thing. And that's because I felt well when I ate that way, and I felt horrible when I would eat with my peers who would have donuts and cookies and ice cream and sodas. Sure, they tasted good for a second, but then later just felt absolutely horrible. And I really felt like this was something that I wanted to devote my life to. And I had some kind of monumental turning points in my life. One of them was realizing at not just going to University of Pennsylvania undergrad, but in my senior capstone project that I had to do through, I focused on communication and commerce, and we had to do these campaigns, and I ended up doing one on health and well-being and eating a plant-based diet for families and actually women and new parents. So that was kind of interesting, looking at kind of where I am today. And I found out about this organization called the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. But little did I know that about 8 years later, I would be running one of their spin-off nonprofit organizations called the Cancer Project and starting this Food for Life program that Gordon had been telling you about. And it was such an incredible, incredible experience to witness all of these people around the country and around the world who really wanted to take that step of devoting their lives to changing their diet, seeing those health outcomes and being persistent with it, like watering the plant every day. You may not see immediate change, but since it was a 2-month program, people actually were seeing changes by the end of it. The problem was we really weren't doing anything kind of researching it to see, all right, these are actually the clinical outcomes. So I was really interested in partnering with a university, and we had funded clinical research that Dr. Saxe was working on at UC San Diego. So that's how I knew about the Center for Integrative Medicine, knew about this program, and knew immediately that I wanted to get involved because there's so much more. Certainly, the diet is a core piece, but also to be able to combine that with stress reduction and all sorts of mind-body techniques, it really makes it for a powerful combination. So to be able to have that idea for that new program, we started talking about it right away, even when I was at the Cancer Project and kind of thinking, how could we make the next level, the next version of this sort of Food for Life 2.0. Now, we didn't end up launching it through the Cancer Project, but that ended up really becoming the ideas that laid the foundation for our natural healing and cooking program at UC San Diego. So that, as Gordon has told you, is now a program that has been running for 2 years, and we're so excited to really see that program blossom into what we feel is the core of a new healthcare system. I just loved this image of this being your prescription, because that's the whole idea, is that we really do have this power in our own hands, and yet there isn't a lot of information or knowledge yet that has been shared with how to actually do this, how to make it practical. There are some incredible health professionals who are focused on that, and I invite all of you, if you are involved in some way as in the health system of UCSD, to keep in touch with us, because we would love to just find more ways to educate the community. Obviously, if you're here, you probably have a passion, and I would bet that you have a lot of knowledge about this already. So we need to band together as colleagues, as people at UCSD, and as women, because there's such a powerful impact that we can have at UCSD if we set that precedent here as the largest academic, or actually the only academic health center in San Diego. we can have a cascading effect throughout the country. We're a member of an organization called the Consortium of Academic Health Centers for Integrative Medicine, which is 60 other academic health centers and health systems across the country who are also focused on integrative medicine. And they want any sort of innovations to be able to be spread quickly all across the country. So we're on this mission together. And so the more that we can have this power and show the effect here in San Diego, the more of an effect that we might even have all across the country. So it's a very, very exciting time. And so it's going to take a lot of work. There's a lot that still needs to be done. And with that, I'd like to give the microphone back to Gordon to share a little bit more.
So now I'm going to get a little more serious with you. It is true. We live in the midst of intersecting crises. You can't turn on the TV without realizing this. We have an unprecedented obesity epidemic in our country that, combined with an aging population, is leading to rampant levels of chronic diseases that can destroy people's lives, destroy their finances, and that collectively threaten to bankrupt our entire economy. Coupled with this, we are seeing growing antibiotic resistance. We have conditions that were eminently treatable, and now we're discovering that oftentimes things that we could easily treat, we can no longer treat, and we have to go to bigger guns, and sometimes we run out of guns, and people are dying of diseases that used to be treatable. Why is this happening? A large part of it is because we are wasting antibiotics to feed livestock. I mean, this to me seems like madness. This is the real mad cow disease. We're also prescribing them for conditions that don't medically warrant them. We're giving them away sometimes like candy, and we're losing their effectiveness. Another problem we all know about is the depletion of natural resources on the planet. We're seeing widespread deforestation in Brazil, in the Amazon, in Indonesia in particular. We're seeing across the United States and other countries the loss of precious topsoil that used to make the Great Plains this incredible breadbasket. And all over the place, we're running into water shortages, fresh water shortages. We certainly know that here in California. We're facing what some people are describing as a 500-year drought, and there's really no end in sight to it. And then, of course, we're dealing with global climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions that are leading inexorably to this problem. And these threaten the existence not only of our society, but it's almost impossible to conceive of this, but of humanity itself. And in the short run, at least, it seems like the most important driver of global climate change, more than carbon dioxide, is methane. Now, we don't hear this on the news all the time, but it turns out that methane is over 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. Levels of methane, well, let's put it this way. Carbon dioxide, because of human involvement, has increased about 30% in the atmosphere from the time, during the industrial era. Methane has increased over 100%. And in the short run, it appears that methane is the factor, more than carbon dioxide, that's driving the climate change that we're seeing already. And the biggest source of methane, well, it's referred to as enteric fermentation. Has anybody ever heard of enteric fermentation? That's a very polite and delicate way of referring to cow farts. Yes, it's cows passing gas. We have herds of livestock on planet Earth that are vast, hundreds of millions at a level that we've never seen before. And like anybody who's a ruminant, they will pass gas. And unfortunately, it adds to what's in the atmosphere, and it's been potent. So, in more ways, that was intentional, and you guys get an A+ for picking it up. Anyway, these are really mind-numbingly huge problems, and they're quite intractable. And they're all, at least in part, the result, and more so than we might imagine, of our rich and yet paradoxically impoverished diets, and our lifestyles beyond that. So all of these things we could begin to address. We could begin the process of reversing them by making small changes in a factor that's within our grasp, each of us in our daily lives, the choice of what we eat on a daily basis. So I want to look at one of these problems, going back to health, not so much global health, but human health, and look at the change in the rates of obesity from the time that we first had national statistics state by state, which was in the mid-'80s, here, 1985. These are from the this is from the Centers for Disease Control. And you see here, the darker blue states are states in which 10 to 15% of the population is obese, meaning a body mass index that takes weight and height into account for your weight, and that's a body mass index of over 30, or about 30 pounds overweight for a person who's 5 foot 4 inches. And look what happens as we go year by year to the rates of obesity. 86, 87. We have a new category emerging. Some states have now achieved the point, the great achievement, that upwards of 20% of their population, 1 in 5 people, is obese, not overweight, obese. Most important driver of type 2 diabetes. Also, a risk factor for heart disease. A risk factor for, now it turns out, for cancer, and in many cases, cancer progression and survival after treatment. Growing numbers of states across the country. If this were bird flu, we'd be heading for the exits. Now you see a new category is emerging, 20 to 25% of the population. That's the yellow states. And there is an orange state. Anybody from Mississippi? They have great deep-fried catfish. I can tell you, I was a student at Tulane in New Orleans. We used to go there to Waveland, Mississippi. Wonderful catfish. But boy, it packs on the pounds. I mean, this is just incredible. The emergence of the red states. I'm not making judgments, political judgments, just look at this. So anyway, that's the last year, 2010, that we have data for. But I mean, this, and today, about 30% of the population nationwide is obese. And over 50% of the population, 55 and over, is pre-diabetic or diabetic. Over 50, more than half. So what are the main causes? Well, I'm not naming names, but if anybody has seen Super Size Me, you might have an idea. Now, we can debate a lot. What exactly is it about the diet that causes these problems, like obesity and heart disease and cancer and so forth? Is it the wrong kind of fats? Some people say it's refined carbs, like sugar and white flour. Some argue, no, it's animal protein, too much meat and animal protein. Others say too many chemicals, genetically modified organisms, additives in our foods. Other people say it's that our diets are devoid, they're deficient, they don't have adequate fiber or micronutrients or phytonutrients. And also, diet isn't everything. There are other things that we take in, that we ingest, other things that we do that are also important. So when we look at this, sometimes I feel like we're a little bit like the 7 blind men and the elephant. You know, it's a spear, it's a fan, it's the fat, it's the carbs, it's the this, it's the that. But I would suggest to you that the elephant is the standard American diet. And when we look at this in context, we see some amazing things. Here we're looking at cancer rates in relationship to total dietary fat intake. Of course, that's just a marker for the standard American or the westernized developed nation diet. And you see dramatic differences in rates of cancer around the world. And during my training, I learned that there were these huge, huge differences. And for example, in prostate cancer, the rate of prostate cancer, even after accounting for age differences in the population, is about 80 times higher in China. Not 8, 80 times higher in China than it is in the United States. The difference between Chinese men in Qidong province, southwest of Shanghai, and African American men living in Atlanta, Georgia, is 132-fold. There's something in the water here. Interestingly, some people say, well, it's genetic. Maybe Asians, Chinese, these folks are different than Caucasians, and that it's in our genes. But then I guess I would have to ask, then why is it that when Japanese or Chinese migrate to the United States, their rates of these diseases skyrocket? Their children, the children of the immigrants, have the same rates as Caucasian Americans. And yet, genetically, they haven't changed. I mean, these are the same people or their children who are of both parents being Chinese or Japanese, but their rates have skyrocketed. So when we look at the people from the low-risk countries like Asia, Thailand, Japan, China, El Salvador, Central America, but when we look at this, we see a lot of differences in their diets compared to the United States and Western world. And one of the things that we see, and one of the things that we would recommend, is that we replace the old 4 food groups, which we think are the drivers of this. I mean, one of the food groups is meat, a second food group is dairy, a third food group is fruits and vegetables. We just put them into one little, one together, and grains. And the new 4 food groups, the way that people eat in the low-risk countries is they eat unrefined grains. They eat all kinds of vegetables, a lot in the cabbage family, for example. Beans and legumes, fruit, seeds, nuts. They might, if they live in coastal areas, they might have a little fish in their diet. Usually it's wild caught. They don't have factory farmed meat the way we do, or factory farmed dairy products. So one person that has done a lot of research in this area, and somebody who has really documented a lot of this work, is Dr. Colin Campbell. And Campbell has had a career of almost 50 years as a research scientist at Cornell, and he's the author or co-author of the China-Oxford-Cornell Diet and Health Study, also known as the China Study. And this is a book that was written on this huge, huge project that was a popular bestseller. The study was described as the Grand Prix of epidemiologic research by the New York Times. And what Campbell saw was that within China itself, there are huge differences, 100-fold. I think for ovarian cancer, 300-fold difference in rates of ovarian cancer between low-risk areas of China and high-risk areas. So within one country, we see dramatic differences in a population that's essentially genetically equal, pretty similar throughout. In the United States, we're all eating some version of the standard American diet, most of us. There are a few weirdos who are vegetarians or whatnot, but mostly we're eating the standard American diet or the prudent standard American diet. But there isn't much of a difference, and the rates are pretty much uniform for cancer and heart disease across across the states, but not in China. And in China, you see that in the poorer rural areas, people are eating at the bottom of the food chain. They can't afford the rich westernized diet the way they do in the large cities. So anyway, we ran a conference last year where we invited Dr. Campbell to speak, and it was a really exciting opportunity for us in the field of integrative medicine to begin to define how we feel that cancer should be addressed. So the conference was Integrative Oncology. It was held here on campus about a year ago, and we boiled down the whole thing to 6 words, and those were nourish health, starve cancer, build community. So, in our view, the first thing we need to do when we're trying to tackle these big health problems is to help all of us to nourish our health, to build our health, to make ourselves resilient against cancer and other diseases. And that could be to help prevent it from developing in the first place, or to aid in recovery after it's been diagnosed or treated. And the second thing we need to do, kind of related to that, is to starve cancer. Not in an angry way, but simply to stop feeding it the things that drive its growth. I mean, you could think of cancer as akin to a lawn with grass. And there are seeds, there are carcinogens that plant the seed for grass to grow. But if we water that with our diet and lifestyle, we can make it grow really fast. Sometimes the grass gets out of control and we need to mow it. There's a time and a place when you do need conventional treatment. But at the same time, we also feel that if that's going on, maybe you also ought to think about not watering it excessively as well, not feeding its growth, and making that a part of the way that we approach conditions as well. So in other words, replacing a purely disease treatment model with one that is truly integrative and brings in prevention as an active part, self-care as an active part of what people do. So we all know, the changes that people need to make, they're really pretty simple. Adopt a whole food, plant-based diet. Quit smoking. Engage in regular physical activity. Learn how to control and manage stress better. Develop intimacy and a purpose in life. But I can tell you about these things, but to bring them about in our own lives is not easy. It takes much more than willpower. It takes a village. And that's why we had the third 2-word couplet, build community. And so
that's exactly right. If you think about food as a social connector, it really is an opportunity to build community around food. You think about holidays and what brings a family together to enjoy a meal together. And over the holidays and different gifts that we give, we say, oh, here's a treat, here's a gift, here's food. What if that food could actually be something that not just you loved because it tasted good at that moment, but the food that actually loved you back? Wouldn't that be a nice relationship to have? So instead of giving a treat to someone, you're actually giving them a gift of health and of love, and you can make it taste delicious. I think that's the whole sort of bad rep that health food has gotten. Most people think, oh, if it's healthy, I have to give stuff up. What do I have to give up? Well, we'd like to just completely turn that idea on its head, that you can have the most delicious, enjoyable meals with your friends and family that connect all of us and actually are a long-term gift of health and of well-being. So you don't have to give anything up. That's one of the first things that we teach in our classes is it's actually about what you're adding, not what you're taking away. And we just have to learn how to do it because it's not accessible in our modern society. So we have to come together as the community to create that for one another. And once again, as we know, with women, we have the power to make that choice. We're the ones still, like it or not, that are doing the shopping and most of the cooking. And thank goodness we are getting our partners and friends and everyone to participate in that, because that is going to be the power of community that's going to make that difference. And that's why we do like to teach in groups, and we give incentives for people to bring their families and friends to come to our classes, because it does take, we're social creatures. We are influenced by others around us. We can't help it. That's why for this conference, I hope everyone enjoyed the breakfast. For this conference, we actually worked with the conference organizers and UCSD Catering to make sure that there would be a delicious and healthy option and meal for all of you to enjoy, for all of us to enjoy. Because if there's a cookie, I don't know about you, but if there's a cookie that's sitting in front of me, I feel like it starts taunting me and calling my name. And then I say, well, I eat really well most of the time. I could just have this one cookie just today, just this time. But then it starts to happen. We get busy. And then it seems like almost every day there's something where I'm saying, oh, just this one, just this one. And then before I know it, I'm not really feeling that good about myself, and I'm not really following what I know I really need to do to be well. So why not just make what's available around us healthy, and let's just support each other in that goal? Because at first it may feel like, oh, am I depriving? I get that question a lot too, because I try to cater all events that we do with this principle of healing foods. Well, don't you want to give people choices? And shouldn't they have, some people might want the chips and the sodas and the cookies and all of that stuff. And I said, that stuff is available everywhere you look. Don't worry about people having choices for that. What's harder to come by are those truly healing options that really will start setting those patterns. Because I don't know about you, but I've noticed when I start eating really, really well after not eating well, sometimes kind of around the holiday seasons or different things, I get to a point, if I'm eating really well, where I'm not even craving those bad foods anymore. I actually am just enjoying, it's kind of, you get in a rhythm and it cascades. The more you're eating the right foods, you want more of the right foods. And if you're kind of sneaking in all those wrong foods, all of a sudden you get a hankering for all of those wrong foods. So we get ourselves in that rhythm, and I think that's the key, is to help really support each other. And so I just wanted to thank the organizers and also UCSD Catering for doing such an amazing job with the food, because you're really making a difference for all of us. And then as women, of course, we are leaders in our community, and I know there are differences among us that I'm sure, Gordon, as his parents being, or family being psychotherapists, has heard a lot about this.
Yes, tell me about your problem. You can help me with this. So actually, I wanted to tell you about an observation that I made that kind of reinforced a little bit of what you were talking about, Lauray, and that is, in projects that I've done now a couple times with patients with advanced prostate cancer, we saw that there was a clear effect of diet on the progression of the cancer even after it had spread. But why were we able to see this? Well, one reason was because we were effective in getting the men in our study to change their diets. Well, how did we bring this about? Of course, the men were highly motivated. They knew that they did not have curative treatment options, so they kind of felt like they had the gun to their head. But on a more positive note, we asked them to come to our groups, to our classes, with a support person, and usually that was their wife. And we found that the couples working together tended to form a therapeutic dyad. And it enhanced the diet and the health of both parties, not just the man with the prostate cancer, but also his partner. In fact, it may be a more effective way for the women to help improve their health, and for men, in exchange, to support their own health, is by helping their partner, by doing something beyond yourself, by giving to somebody else. And of course, throughout the ages, women have really been the healers, and we were able to draw upon that. I mean, you think back, before the advent of allopathic medicine, before the last century or so, women were the midwives. They were the ones who were in touch with the natural rhythms, much more than men were. They were the ones who were really the healers. And that's not to say that men can't be healers. Men can also be great chefs. But there is something that I think for women is really important here. And there was a writer. Has anybody heard of Deborah Tannen? A few people. She talks about the differences in the communication styles of men and women. She said that men are more focused on report and women on building rapport. And she says that women, she feels, tend to desire intimacy in conversation. They want to feel connected to others. And by the way, I'm not saying this is necessarily my observation or not, but I think there may be truth to it. Not necessarily for genetic reasons, but because of the way people are acculturated. Men, she feels, want to give information, but they want to remain independent. They are more comfortable telling others what to do and appearing superior. And women, on the other hand, try to avoid the appearance of superiority. Women want to reach consensus and consult with others before deciding, and women want to build relationships and to give information and solve problems.
Which, interestingly enough, are a lot of the characteristics, those female characteristics that Deborah Tannen described, actually are what I learned in business school are actually the best leadership traits. So I kind of think as women, we're built in to take a leadership role, and especially when it comes to health and well-being. We have a long way to go to get our whole society and community healthy. So let's really harness this natural role as leaders that we have. Let's harness this fact that we are doing the majority of the shopping and the cooking and the caring and the health care for our families. And let's really turn it into true love for what we're eating, and that the food then will also love us back. Thank you all so much for having us. I do want to once again thank the organizers. Thank UCSD Catering for making such amazing, delicious meals. Please do keep in contact with us. We could not be more excited to be in touch with UCSD women. And I think for each of us, there's something that we can do in our own lives, whether it's the next meeting that you're organizing at UCSD. Know that now you have this resource of UCSD Catering that instead of making the typical white bread sandwich and chips and sodas that you order automatically for your meetings, why not order a beautiful quinoa salad that they have on the menu, or some sort of Mexican brown rice and beans, or something really delicious and wholesome. And then in your families, start to create these new wonderful meals. We're happy to share recipes with you to help with that inspiration, and if there's anything else that we can do to empower you in your life, please keep in touch, and I'm sure there's a lot that we can learn also from you, because that's really what it's all about.
And I would also add, green is not just for the diet. We also want to plant trees. We want to build community, not just with food, but more broadly with the world around us. And I think women have a really, really critical role to play in this.
So if anyone's doing any gardening or planting, let us know, because we'll participate in that too. All right, thank you, everyone.
Got it? Great. Why don't you join me again in thanking our speakers, Lauray, MacElhern, Dr. Saxe. I know I've been inspired to be the change I want to see through changing my diet and changing my health and my wellness for myself, for my family, and I'm thankful for the tools to be able to do that. And I hope we've all been inspired today. We also like to thank the Vice Chancellor for her comments today and telling us what's underway on campus for women and the issues that we're concerned about. Before we break out into our breakout sessions and are able to enjoy the rest of what's planned for this meeting, we'd like to thank the members those that have planned this event today and to recognize them. And first of all, we'd like to thank the committee members who were in charge of planning and organizing this event today. And if they will please stand, they're in the front here not looking at me on purpose. So it's Jennifer Kim, please stand and give a nod. And Rachel Cook, please stand. So we can recognize them and and all that we're able to enjoy today in their efforts that they've done as well with other members of the conference committee that they've overseen: Susan Chadwell, Barbara Danner, Joy Fry, April Garrison, Sheena Gambari, Katie Gonzalez, Gwendolyn Guzman, Shauna Hill, Dana Johnson, Anna Kazir-Frida, Julia Partridge, Brianna Wiesinger, and Elizabeth Yoder. So we thank you all for your efforts today. I'd also like to thank the many volunteers who are helping today to make the event go smoothly. Thank you for your time and effort. And we'd also like to importantly thank you all for being here today. So before we move forward, there are a few reminders. So please see your schedules on your WABA app, or you can also refer to our links online and emails that were sent for the rest of the agenda for the day, where to attend to see the many speakers that we have that have been organized. Also, I'm looking forward to the breakfast. Was very delicious. I did not miss the donuts. And I'm also looking forward to the healthy afternoon snack that will be. So please, there'll be a healthy afternoon refreshment. They'll be set up at noon in the back of the ballroom here. So please come back and enjoy that this afternoon. Please also be sure to check out the resource and vendor fair. So this will be taking place outside in the foyer. They'll be here till about 2 p.m. today, offering their services and their resources for you to be able to look at and to see what they have to offer. Please ask any of the committee members or volunteers for assistance today as you're navigating throughout the schedule. And we hope today will be exciting, educational, and rewarding for all of you. So we thank you again for being here.